out of sight. Talking about my life, government stay away. Watch me thrive, I'ma do it my own way. Squid in the ocean, swimming all alone. Ain't nobody telling me where to go. Living free, gotta stay true to myself. No need for interference from anyone else. Squid pro quo, that's the way to be. Living on my terms, setting myself free. Mama to my baby, protecting with my no government intrusion. I control my life.
Hey guys, it's Squid. Welcome back to my channel. Sorry I still sound like a Muppet, but I have a guest with me tonight. Dose Reality, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well. How are you doing today?
I am good. This is my second live stream of the day, so excuse me
You've
for
been
being
busy.
a little wonky. And see, I was not late. We were talking. We were just talking, and we were talking. And we were talking, and we lost all the time. So I'm not late. You're just early. How is everybody doing tonight? And let me get this started with Ong Hung Hero. Thank you, as usual, for being my turn the chat green for the 5 Squid Proco memberships. And Flash Fan got a membership. Flash Fan, Mitch, Calm One, Beelzebub. Oh, that's a good name for tonight. And Sandy Mosley. And Ong Hung Hero says, Flash Fan, I got ya. All right. I am so interested in this topic. So we're going to discuss parasocial relationships. And if you've been on my channel for any number of days, I've been sort of dipping into this topic every now and then, because I saw it in myself with a couple of things, and I see it on both sides of what the Hales. But Dose Reality had reached out to me and given me some resources, and in talking to her, she knows a lot more about this topic and has some insight that I don't have. And you know that I like to surround myself with people that are smarter than me. So we figured out a time that would work for both of us to have a conversation on stream. So everybody be nice, chat be nice. You know her, be nice. Like,
Absolutely sure. I'm probably not smarter than you. I just research stuff.
And I will fully admit that I have interest in topics, but things that interest, I just go with what interests me. And this is like, this topic has interested me from really from back in like the days in the 90s when I had like posters of like JTT and like 98 Degrees and In Sync on my wall, and like writing their fan clubs, thinking that they were going to get back to me. You know, like that delusional teenager. And like, then with the rise of YouTube and everything going on with this Jeremy Hale situation, it just kind of brought all of this to the forefront. And since I have a channel, I'm like, hey, why not talk about it? Because everybody knows that it's different with what I talk about with this Jeremy Hales. I try not to talk about the same thing as everybody else because I get bored easily. And if I'm talking about the same thing as everybody else, I'm just going to be bored out of my mind.
And there, you know, always when there's a sort of, I guess you'd call it a hot topic like this, there's so many angles that people won't hit, and there's so many rabbit holes that not everybody can go down each one. And so it's good to have a lot of people, you know, talking about the different things that it touches upon. You know, a lot of times I'll, you know, watch a topic like this and I'll say, well, but what about this? Why isn't anybody talking about this? You know, so that's what we're going to try and do today, is talk about some of that other stuff.
And I had personally seen this in myself, and I had talked about that a little while ago, where I try not in my life to feel like I'm entitled to things. But when you are a mod on someone's channel, or someone puts your comment up and like interacts with you a lot, you have that like, oh, they like me. Oh, they like
Mhm.
me. And then it's like when I started my channel and people were promoting other people's channels and not mine, even though I was, I work or I thought like we had a relationship and we were good.
Mhm.
And it was
Mhm.
like that wasn't I had this moment of clarity when talking to Mr. Squid, and I was like, that's not a them problem. Why am I frustrated with other people when this is a me internally
Right.
expecting a relationship that's not there because it's YouTube and the internet? Like, so if I noticed it in myself, and then I started when I it's like to a hammer, everything looks like a nail. When I
Mhm.
noticed it in myself, I started noticing it everywhere.
Yep.
And it's just like I started to notice things that I hadn't noticed before. And I just started talking about it because it's fascinating. I like psychology, it's fascinating. So, what makes people tick makes
Yep.
me like interested. And some of the resources that you sent me in this video that you sent me, we're kind of going to go through this video a little bit. And I will post this video link in the description of the video because this video is very helpful. It's on stalkers, and I know that's taking it a little to the unhealthy side, but we'll get into why it's important and why we think this relates to the Jeremy Hale situation. So,
Sure, and it really does. It that's the end point. When you start talking about parasocial relationships, you know, there's good stuff about them, and then there's really bad things about them, and that's what we're gonna, I guess, start with is how far can it go? How bad can it be? And that's sort of a stalker relationship.
and I have a feeling that this will be more than one stream on this because there's so many rabbit holes. Because um, it's like I've noticed, and I think in talking about some of this stuff, um, the judicial system and everybody's mad at the judge. Um, it's like I don't think the judicial system has caught up to, and even the law enforcement has caught up to online issues. Because even when I had filed that law or that lawsuit, I didn't file a lawsuit. I filed a police report just to start a paper trail in case Bruce's threats of CPS went any farther than a threat. I had a paper trail to protect myself, and um, I um, even then, even though the cop took me seriously, it was still like that. Well, it's YouTube. Well, it's YouTube,
Mhm.
and
Yep.
I'm like, eh. So J. Katie Buck with Law Rex was cool. He let me post Squid's channel all the time in chat. He wanted Squid to grow. Yes, the Law Rex was my biggest cheerleader. Um, he was one. He was one where um, I, yeah, he was one where like I would message him, and he was on my channel, helping me with raising money for a church after the hurricanes hit my town. Um, so he was great, and I miss him every day. Um, yeah. Thanks, JKD Buck, for making me tear up. Hoy. Oh my goodness. And thank you, Freckle Ginger, for the $5 super chat. What? You mean you don't like it when you say hi? Rude. Oh, and I'm sorry if there's people that I didn't say hi to. When I have a guest, I try to give them my undivided attention. So I pay attention to chat, but you know, uh, I I pay less attention to chat when I have a guest. So you know, and MS Coast Uber Life. I'm from Key West, Florida. You were right on the Keys time. We're never on time for anything. Oh, I want to go to the Keys so bad. Y'all look like you have so much fun down there. All right. Yeah, and Dan, we almost lost power again today. It was so hot today. It was like 94 degrees and humid as hell and raining this afternoon. And I'm like, it's just gonna be, Oy. And Lisa, I totally agree. I think social media is beyond the court's comprehension on what it entails. And I think that's one of the reasons that everybody's getting frustrated with the judge. And I like I see both sides because it's like the judicial system hasn't caught up because most people in the judicial system, the judges, do not have social media for ethical reasons. And because of that, they don't connect to social media like you or I do. And that's where we that's where the divide is. And yeah.
I think there's a lot of confusion too, where people, the police, the judges, all that, they think if it's online, there's nothing real that can happen. Well, we're going to get to that later on, but there have been real things that can happen. There are real things that can happen. And I think it's going to maybe take, unfortunately and sadly, a lot of real things happening before they turn around and say, oh, yeah, wait a minute. We have to start looking at this and taking it seriously.
Yeah, and that's always the fear because it's like
Yeah,
we have a mental health crisis in this country, whether people want to admit it or not. We don't need to stigmatize mental health. We don't need to make people feel ostracized for having a mental health issue. However, we do need to acknowledge that those people need help
yeah,
and we need to provide the resources and not, we don't need to be in denial about the problem, but we also don't need to ostracize those people. There is a happy medium where we can acknowledge that, yes, they are people and yes, they deserve, fair treatment and they deserve to be treated like everybody else, but at the same time, they need help. And this is where everybody can have a YouTube channel and everybody's hiding behind a nickname and an avatar. And you don't know who is really, we've seen lately with people being fraudulent that you don't really know who is behind those names. You
right.
think you know, and people might tell you who they are, but you don't know until you really know. So we do have this video on stalkers. It is 9 minutes long. We're going to kind of stop and talk about it. One, because I don't want to get copyright struck, because this guy looks like a really nice guy, and I don't want to, steal his content. So, but I will. It's there here. If I have kidneys or heart, no stigma. If I have a bad brain, stigma. Yeah, and we need to destigmatize having a mental health issue, but realize that they do exist. Because if we don't help those people and we be in denial about it, things can happen. And, you know, that's not to say mental health people with mental health issues are dangerous. That is not what I'm saying. However, it's having a mental health issue is no different than having a broken leg. You just can't see it. It's it's a,
Well, I think you're really well spoken on this point, because I think part of the problem that we run into is people are afraid to say things like, this mental health disorder can lend itself to this. So, for example, if we're talking about, where parasocial, relationships go really bad, there are particular, mental health issues that can exacerbate it. If
yeah.
somebody has those, if they're untreated, and so on and so forth. And people are so afraid to say, yes, this is what it is. These people can, more commonly do this type of thing. And they're afraid to say that because then you'll have the person saying, well, whatever it is, I'm going to pick something. So, say, for example, I'm bipolar. I don't do those things, or, don't stigmatize me. Yeah, well, if you're bipolar, you're self aware, you're taking your medication, you're getting help, you're working on it, you're probably doing just fine. But a lot of people are unmedicated and don't even know that they have the issue, you see? And so there's a vast difference even between those two people. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so we can't be afraid to say, these are the things that cause this. And I guess perhaps if we always add untreated or unbeknownst to them, you know what I mean? Because a lot of people who have, certain, things going on are unaware of it. And so they're just behaving in ways that, are uncontrolled,
Yeah,
you
I
know?
I mean, I can relate sort of with my head or my Chiari, where my brain was falling out of my head. Doctors for years would tell me that I was faking my symptoms or I was this or I was that. And it's like I didn't know for a long time that what I was feeling was not normal. Um, the headaches, I didn't realize that people didn't wake up with a headache every day. I didn't realize that people actually go to sleep 6, 7, 8 hours, and wake up like they've actually gotten sleep. Um, I don't didn't realize that when people got new shoes, they're not supposed to hurt your feet for 2 weeks. Like, there's things that I didn't realize were abnormal until I finally found a doctor who was like, "This is what you have. This is why. Here's look at your." I had my the head of neurology be like, "Can I bring in some med students to see your reflexes because your reflexes are so abnormal, and they won't see abnormal reflexes like this very often." And I'm like, "Sure, why not? Let me be a teaching moment." But like, I didn't know that those things were abnormal until someone told me. So, like, I think
Exactly.
that people need mental health screenings all the time, not because there's anything wrong with them, but sometimes we just need to check. Like when you go to the doctor after having a baby, I went to my OB and she would give me a questionnaire about postpartum depression. Like
Yeah,
mental health should just be a normal part of your physical. When they're checking to
exactly.
make sure your arms move like they're supposed to, and your reflexes are good, they should be checking your brain to make sure that you're not having increased anxiety, you're not having fear of leaving the house. Like, and it's for me, I just being in a hospital setting for so long. My professor told me you can take the phys rehab out of mental health, but you can never take the mental health out of phys rehab. And it's navigating people's psychology
Their
and
state of
meeting
mind.
people where they are
Yeah.
to get the best results. And I've always my dad taught me when I was real little not to be an all or nothing, like never generalize because nothing is one size fits all
Right.
and everything is nuanced. So I try to bring with everything I do the nuance. And I'm glad that we can have this platform to talk about these difficult topics because none of this is easy. But if yeah, if we don't talk about it, then it becomes a stigma because everybody's scared to talk. And I don't believe we should be scared to talk about things.
I
So,
agree.
and yeah, some people use mental health challenges as defense as opposed to using call outs as an opportunity to double check if they may have issues around it. Yeah, and there's also a thing of like, I do understand that people abuse the system in the sense of like, just because you were depressed for a day, everybody gets depressed. You were anxious about a test. Everybody has anxiety sometime. It's whether your brain can. That's why the DSM-5 has time limits on a lot of their stuff. You've been experiencing these symptoms for 2 weeks or longer, or 6 months or longer, because everybody has depression or anxiety for a couple of days. It's whether your brain can adapt and get you through that, or whether you have abnormal coping skills. And it's so the people that are like, oh, I need an antidepressant, I have anxiety. No, it's called Tuesday. Like that's called Tuesday, and you have a crappy job where your boss doesn't respect you. That's not that you have depression. It's you have people around you who suck. So, like, there's
Yeah,
a
and addressing that comment, I think one of the my favorite things that somebody said was it was I think Laura Knighty. Is that how you pronounce her last name? I'm not sure.
yeah,
But Laura Knighty one time, speaking about Laura Owens, she claimed to have, problems that, and as an excuse for all of the terrible things that she's done to people. And Laura Knighty said, asshole is not, oh, I'm sorry. Is that bad?
no, you're fine. I'm a sailor. You can,
But basically, yeah, I'm a sailor too, but I try not to be, in situations like this. But
yeah,
anyway,
it's one of
basically,
those
she
things of
said
like
a hole
you
is not a protected class. So, in other words, yeah, what you do is what you do, and if it's bad, it's bad. That doesn't get protected. What gets protected is you getting, treated as everyone else, See, so you're not set aside because you might have something going on mentally. You're not set aside in a way that excuses you from everything. That's not part of it. And too many people think that that's part of it. If you have some mental issues going on, no. No, it just means it's like somebody who has dyslexia. They can still read, but they just have to, make that extra effort, to do what they need to do. And it's the same thing with a mental health issue or a physical issue. You're not any better, any worse, any less, any more. You just have something that you have to deal with, and everybody has different things they have to deal with. So it's not an excuse. And
Yeah,
we see people doing that.
Even the healthiest person can go to the doctor and find the doctor can do a physical and find like 3 things wrong with them. Like nobody is like, perfect, but
Perfect,
it's
exactly.
it's just like being the chronic pain crew. I always call them my chronic pain crew because I'm, one of them. I didn't know your feet weren't supposed to hurt on a daily basis. Like, you know, uh, I didn't know you weren't supposed to feel your fingers. Like
Right.
certain things like that. Like you'll see me shift around in this chair. My chair is not uncomfortable. This chat bought me this chair. So I this chair is not uncomfortable. It's the fact that my nerves cannot handle sitting in one spot for a certain period of time where I have to shift, otherwise my leg will fall asleep. It's the weirdest. I still have cysts in my spinal cord, so I'm, so I can. But it's one of those invisible injuries.
Yes.
It's nobody can see it, so people are like, you can't. Oh, there, I can't see your pain, so there's nothing wrong with you.
Right.
It's those kind of like interesting conundrums too. Well, my little is awake.
Uh-oh. Here comes
Hopefully she'll
trouble.
put herself back to sleep. And I have this video on 1.25 speed, so if he's talking a little fast, we sped up the video.
Okay.
So, but stalker is what they want and making them stop. And it's by Andrew T. Austin. Go give him a subscription because he seems like a very knowledgeable person who puts things in plain language. So I'm gonna play this. Let's see if hopefully she rolled over and went back to sleep.
So I've had some conversations with clients around stalking and the issues of stalking. And one of the questions that does come up quite a bit is, what does the stalker want? How can I make them go away? And when I look on the stalking support forum, that is a common thing as well, where the person will outline what the issue is, what form the stalking takes. And then basically, what can I do to make them go away? And then lots of people who really should know better, but probably don't, then come in with, well, I know what you should do. If you just do this or say this or post this thing online, that will make them stop. And certainly when I was experiencing stalking myself, this was a very common reaction from other people, where everyone knew the thing that would make the stalker stop is not true. The stalker's not going to stop just because you do something, you threaten them, or somebody says some magic words, or does something really clever. And that's the thing that I notice, especially amongst the therapy type people, the people into coaching and personal development. They always think they know the really clever thing to say.
Yeah, going into this, he's got a really good point. With the therapy crew, like, don't get me wrong, I have nothing against therapy. I do art therapy. I have nothing against it, but you get certain therapists that are like, this is what you need to do, and that's not a one size fits all thing either. And like, he brings up a really good point. What everybody tells you to do is not what actually works. And I've never had a stalker, so I don't know. People don't like me that much. So, but it's an interesting topic. So I gotta interrupt the video a bunch of times because I don't want him to copyright strike me, because we are talking about his video, not just taking away his views.
And this is a problem because actually what you're more likely to do is to encourage the stalker. Gavin De Becker, in his book, The Gift of Fear, terrible title with a terrible introduction, but otherwise an absolutely superb book. Gavin De Becker, The Gift of Fear. I highly recommend anyone who's dealing with the stalking issue get a copy of that book. He looks at a lot of stuff. Essentially what he did was, he said when people go to work for the FBI or any of the security services, they always go and study serial killers. Well, what De Becker did is he went and studied people who had survived encounters.
Wait, that is a really good point. Most people go and study serial killers. How many serial killers are there compared to stalkers or mentally ill individuals or just the asshole online? The people who are trolling. And where are my trolls? They haven't shown up in a while, and I kind of miss them. And careful, Squid, that's just an invitation for somebody to say challenge accepted. Y'all know that I live in rural Georgia, so challenge not accepted. Like, please don't. Ugh.
With serial killers to find out what they had in common, and he then puts together a model around what is it that those people did that other people didn't do, and that's the basis of the book. So it's very, very good. Now, one of the things he points out quite clearly is if the stalker has harassed somebody with, say, 1,000 phone calls and 2,000 emails, and then the person replies to them with the whatever the clever thing is, what the stalker's just learned is it took all those emails and all those phone calls to get a single response. So now they know the ratio, and so they're going to be more determined than ever. Now, most of the time, the stalker doesn't want an endpoint. It's not that they're doing this because they want something to happen. And so a common question that I encountered, but also I see this on the forums as well, what does the stalker want? And if we can find out what they want, satisfy that need, then they will stop. No, they won't. When the stalker basically says, do X, Y, or Z for me, and then I'll leave you alone, or if you don't do such and such, I will carry on, that's a manipulation. That's not an endpoint.
So stop here for a minute. So this is like, okay, I train dogs, right? And I've done that pretty much all my life. And, you know, one of the things that you learn is what you're rewarding, right? And this is exactly on the same idea as that. So if a dog is pawing at you, and, you know, then you give them a treat to make them stop, they're going to always paw at you to get a treat, right? It is the same thing really with humans. It's funny because there are so many, I know it sounds strange, but there's so many parallels between dog training and human training. So like with your daughter, I'm sure that if she, does something for attention and she gets the response, she's going to keep doing that, and like he's saying here with a stalker, when you respond to them, a stalker or an abusive person, when you respond to them and they get the response, that's all they were looking for. All they were looking for was to get at you for not being what they want you to be, so you're just training them. You're training them to do it more, which is a real catch-22 because, well, we'll keep listening here.
And that's fascinating because that's so true. You were talking before we started about certain people just wanting to get under people's skin and it working. And like it's just such a, like, you want it to go away, but the more you engage, the less it goes away.
The stalkers stalk because they like stalking, not because they're looking for an exit plan from the bizarre relationship they have going on inside their head. Now,
wait, I love this guy. I love this guy because he just said it right there. They're stalking because they love stalking. Like the most clear cut and like simple. What is it? Occam's razor. The simplest answer is generally the right one. Like they love stalking. That's why they're stalking. Like it's just they're not.
Bear this in mind, the majority of what is happening in the world of the stalker is happening inside their imagination. They have an avatar of the victim, they have a story of the victim, they're having a relationship with that party, with that part that they've got inside their head, and they're projecting that onto the victim. Meanwhile, the victim is not performing in the way they're supposed to do. So the stalker will harangue, abuse, and all the other things that they do to
only because I think this projection thing needs to be pointed out. This is something that is so common to, abusive people and stalkers, is this idea of projection. And a lot of people see it, for example, like in the Hale's case, where, it's uncanny. It's uncanny how everything that, people will say, everything that they say that, Hales and, whoever else they claim is around Hales is doing, that's what they're doing, you know? And it's this idea of, you know, they are seeing themselves, they have a movie in their head and they really do think that they're the victim, and they project this person is bad and evil and I'm the victim kind of
It,
thing, going on. So that was just a key point is how, if these people say that somebody is doing it, it's what they're doing, which is what makes it very confusing. It makes it very hard to see who's the bad person and who's the good person in this scenario. It's a super complex dynamic.
and it's so true because it's generally the thing about the stalkers and like abusive type personalities is like the minute you call them out for their behavior and how they're acting, they turn around and blame you and make everybody think that you're the horrible person. And it's like that I can relate with. And it's like it's one of those things of like all I did was defend myself or, call them out on what the behavior that they are doing to me. And it's like no one and it's another thing with like stalkers and the police is the stalkers can't like you can't do anything to stalkers because technically they haven't done anything yet. Calling someone a bunch of times is not illegal. Emailing them a bunch of times is not illegal. It's annoying, but it's not illegal. And it's like, it's that like you can't stop them with the judicial system until they do something. But when they do something, it's generally not good. Like,
Well, and that's the thing about that's the problem that people who are in the public eye have, is that, you know people feel like, okay, well, you're out there, and these people now have believe they have a relationship with you. And the problem with it is that, it might be okay for your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your cousin or your uncle to, write you letters and to um call your mother and tell your mother, I think she's feeling down today, you need to help her. But now imagine if a stranger's doing that, right? That's the difference, because people look at these situations and say, okay, well, that's no big deal, why are you having such a reaction to that? You have to have it in the proper perspective. If I don't know somebody, I don't expect them to be calling my mother. If I don't know somebody, I don't expect them to show up at my door. Do you see
yeah.
what I'm saying? And that's the thing. And that's what famous people go through a lot. I've always said I would never, ever want to be famous. I don't want the money. I don't want the fame. And the reason why is just that it's weird. People think they know you. Like, so for example, you could be walking down the street, right? And somebody will come up to you and, oh, so let's just use Hales as an example. Oh, how's George? What happened with this? What happened with that? But you don't know this person from Adam, right? Now, if you're selling and your money depends on it, you're going to follow through with it, and you're going to be like, oh yeah, George is good. And you know what I mean? And yeah, this is what happened with that. And you're going to go through it, and it pays off for you. But at the same time, it's a little intrusive. It's a little creepy, because you don't really know this person. They feel like they know you.
Yeah,
you
and
know?
it's kind of the okay, on a smaller scale, like my only I've had conversations with my chat before. I'm like, I love this community. I want this to be a community. However, most of y'all are hiding behind an avatar and a screen name. And if you if I saw you at the grocery store, you would know me, but I wouldn't know you. And like, I don't mean to be insulting by that, but like that's just how this online thing kind of works. Um, when I worked at the hospital, I had patients who part of working with patients is you got to kind of connect on them on their level. So you got to find something to make a rapport quickly. Otherwise, they tell you to F off and get out of my room and I hate you and you're the spawn of Satan and all of that fun stuff. And like, but the problem with that is then they get discharged and you have people friend you on Facebook because they know your name and like they feel like they know you, and it's like you know an aspect of them and they know an aspect of you, but it's like creepy where you have former patients friending you on Facebook and it's like, I don't know how I feel about that. That's kind of creepy to me. But like they feel like, oh, we made a connection because you helped me through a hard time. And I get it, but I'm like, it's creepy. It's creepy. And like I had a patient go through and like every photo that was public on my Facebook page one time, and I'm like, "You were super sweet when we worked together, but you're kind of creeping me out, like creeping me out." And I'm like, "You think it's to the point of stalking, but it was just like I had to private my Facebook a little more. Like it's just it can go from a normal thing to a creepy thing really fast."
Exactly. And, you know, and the thing is, people don't see it as creepy as it feels to you, because, oh, what's the matter? They bought you a gift. Oh, what's the matter? They keep, bringing you puppies or whatever it is. You know what I mean? What's the problem with that? Well, again, if you don't have, there's that boundary. See, there's the boundary. If you don't have a connection with somebody like that, then when they do things like that, it is uncomfortable for you. And it's not just a matter of being uncomfortable when you're talking about a stalker, because they are doing things purposefully to upset you, to punish you for not being what, their mind made you into, this sort of thing.
And I can totally, like Dr. Anna George said, this is part of why I don't friend my university students. It's maintaining that boundary of, like, I became friends with some of my professors, but like 3 or 4 years after I graduated, when they wanted to catch up and see how our careers were going. It wasn't like a while we were in college kind of thing. It was like, okay, we're all adults now and we're past this and now we're colleagues and I might need your help, with a patient, and I might need your advice on how to treat a certain disorder or disease that I've never seen before. So it was a little different, but it was like after we've graduated. It wasn't, while we were while we were in school. That is boundaries. And it's okay to have boundaries and it's okay for people to not like your boundaries. When someone pushes back against your boundaries, that's when it's like you have to wonder if like someone doesn't like the fact that you have boundaries. Maybe it's time that I don't talk to this person, or I, kind of figure out a way to block them from my channel or not go in chats where they are or things like that. But when you make your entire living online, like Jeremy does, it's a weird dynamic and I can't imagine how to navigate that. So in some ways, like this, I see the behaviors in this video I've seen from the bad neighbors. However, there's the navigation of maybe he didn't do things right in when it initially happened, but then at the same time he's defending his business. So like it's a dynamic that's you don't know you don't know how people are going to react.
Right.
It's It's
Well, and the thing of it is, for him in his circumstances, it it feels, I mean, I don't know what the answer is, because really the answer is to just cut somebody off. You know what I mean? But
yeah, I do.
in his circumstances, now they're saying bad things, which stalkers will do. And so, for example, I was stalked online. I got very into with the Amber Heard Johnny Depp situation. I got very into it. There's a lot of reasons why I won't get into it all, right now, but I was very involved, and I was very supportive of Depp, and very supportive of the fact that all the facts and evidence were saying that she was abusive. Within that, I got attacked, online. This was an ex, and they doxed me. So I know exactly how Megan feels. That not only did they dox me, but they turned around and sent me a map to my house. And then later on talked about, one of them was going to my area where I live. You know what I mean? And now, by this time in the process of dealing with these people, chasing me around and different things, I realized that they were not well. So there's a great deal of threat there. I mean, I wasn't so worried for myself. I started putting my dog out and checking my yard to make sure that nobody had put down some poison for him. You know what I mean? Things like this, But it's very uncomfortable. And especially if you have loved ones, and can you imagine with children, you know? It's just a really, really uncomfortable situation. And like I say, when somebody is going to those extents, they're not healthy, because it's not a healthy thing to do. And so
Yeah,
that's the threat. And again, it's just not taken seriously because people think, well, you know, you're online. What are they going to do? Well, Tug went through it. There's false calls. There's, all kinds of things that people can do. They can swat you, you know,
and
and
that's
it's
one
a
of the reasons.
scary, scary situation.
That's one of the reasons that the first time someone threatened to call CPS on me, I said, if you threaten to call CPS on me again, I'm going to the cops. And
Yeah.
they threatened to call CPS on me again. So I went to the cops with all of their aliases and let the cops know, because even if the cops couldn't do anything, I had a paper trail. So that if they called to swap my house, I had a trail that, hey, I told you guys that this was a possibility. Like,
Right.
you know, so
Yeah. I
when
mean,
y'all call,
I reported my situation to the police as well. And I told them, look, if they call you and make a health check on my house, I'm telling you right now, I'm fine. They're doing it, as something to harm me. And so, is there a way to? I was, asking the cops, is there a way to put like a note in the system that says if
and I
they're
think some
saying
people have
something's
done
going
that.
on at this house, just relax, don't go in with the machine guns because it's probably this problem. You know what I mean?
I know that Tim Pool was swatted a bunch of times, and the Quartering were swatted a bunch of times. Even Mercado was swatted a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Like, it's to the point where like there's notes in there. So I started, and he said something to me about with the CPS thing. The cop was like, and this is small town cops, and they're like, well, CPS has to do an investigation. I was like, I watched enough Megan Fox to know that CPS sucks, especially in Georgia.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
I've watched enough things to like, I got into it when we were still talking to my parent or my in-laws. We went out to dinner with my mother and father-in-law, and he made a comment because that was when baby Squid was just learning to eat solid foods, and I had given her a banana. We had done baby led weaning instead of purees, and I gave it to her in a spear so she could gnaw on it, and then once she bit off a piece that was where I thought it was a choking hazard, I mashed it up and fed it to her that way. And I was talking to them about like being proud that like that my daughter was eating solids, and my father-in-law goes, "You're putting her in harm's way." We live in a town of less than 3,000 people, and we're at the only restaurant in town. Like, I live a mile from here. You're gonna what I don't need is someone following me back to my house and going, "Well, her father-in-law said she was putting her kid in danger," and getting a phone call. Like, I've watched enough Megan Fox to know, no, screw that shit. Like, no, you like, if you have a problem with my parenting, you bring it up to me and Mr. Squid in private, and then we'll decide to go. You don't talk about shit like that in public, because I've seen enough Megan Fox to know. Like, if
Right.
you
I
watch
mean,
Megan Fox,
it's a
if you watch
scary
Megan
thing.
Fox
And
for before the Hales, you know.
yeah, it's a
that-
scary thing. And the problem with the services, like child services and stuff, is that it's uncanny how they seem to, go after the wrong people and then leave the people who really need the attention and the children who really need the help. Terrible things happen because they're not
I
paying
don't
attention to them. And I don't understand how. I don't understand. I just don't understand.
I don't understand it either. Hey, Island, good to see you. And Sticky Widget's here. Everybody can relax. Sticky Widget's here. Um, but it's like it's one of those things too. Like, even with stalking cases and like DV issues, um, going back to like Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie, the body cam footage from when they were out in Arizona or Utah or wherever they were, where it was like he's playing the victim, and it's like you can tell the body language from her is like he is not the victim. He is not the victim. And then they let him go. They let them go when she calmed down, and like he killed her. Like, it, y'all. Like, well, you can't rely on who says they're the victim. You have to actually like take. You can't take people's word for it, because people lie. It's
Exactly. This is what I'm always telling people when there's a story, online, a real life story, happening online where you know people are taking sides. And I'm like, yeah, you can't decide things. It's not a personality contest. It's not a favoritism thing. I find myself saying that a lot with like the Karen Reed situation. It's the same with Jeremy Hales. You don't have to like Karen. You don't have to like Hales. What you have to love is the facts and the evidence, and you have to look for those. And then you also have to be discerning to know, okay, is this real evidence? Is this really a fact? Do you know what I'm saying? So there's a lot to it, and especially when you get to situations where you have somebody who is going to be playing victim, it becomes very, very complex. And you have to stay away from that. Well, this person said this thing and it bothered me or it worried me. You have to stay away from those emotions and stick to facts.
and
Because until you get a lot of facts, and if you're working on emotion, it's not going to happen, because that's what an abusive person, a stalker, does. They work emotions. They work the victim's emotions, and they smear the victim and work the emotions of people around them. That's key. That's key. And a lot of people don't realize that. It's really complex because that is what they do. It's like a no fail thing, you know.
and the one thing, like, I like, speaking of stalkers, Jeannie. Just kidding, Jeannie. Love you. You know that. I'll text you later. Um, Jeannie was my former OT, like, signed my notes and stuff. Uh, yeah, she put my comment up on the screen. She must love me. Jeffrey had a really good comment. Just because I watch a video on YouTube doesn't mean I'm a stalker. Nope, but it doesn't mean you're not either. Well, and part of the reason that when I started covering this case, I started covering it as like reading the documents and as the judge would see it, was because I know a lot of stuff's happened on both sides, and a lot of things that I don't know, and I don't have the time or mental bandwidth to watch 3 years of videos to go back to see what all has gone on. Like, I don't have that much time or attention span. So I figured I would start trying to cover it as like, let's see what the judge is seeing, and only seeing what the judge is seeing and what the facts are. And I learned that the judicial system doesn't see, not only do they not see the nuance unless it's put in a thing, but they don't take the online stuff as, and maybe the judge will prove me wrong when he gives sanctions or whatever, but like they don't take it seriously because it's just YouTube. And like it made me like, I saw both sides and people like getting uber serious. And like I was kind of over all the offline, like, or behind the scenes, this person's talking about this person. I'm like, I don't want any part of that. But at the same time, it's like it's it's like the judge doesn't, I'm sure he has all those thumbnails now where he can go look, but he's still not understanding it because he doesn't have social media. I can guarantee you that judge doesn't go on YouTube at all. Like at all. His kids probably don't even have social media because he's like, no, like not doing it. It's
And I
I,
guess that, yeah, sorry. I guess that's where it comes down to. We hope that judges have the ability to kind of see behind things and see what's going on, right? They're supposed to be very wise and have the wisdom, that's sort of the whole idea of being the one who was chosen to judge, right? Is that you have particular wisdom. And so, there's two things that happen is one would hope that the judge has, that kind of ability to see the things that are going on, for what they say to you, what I mean? And the actual facts of things. The other thing I think that it comes down to is the skill of the lawyer and what they're able to get across. And when you're dealing with stuff online, I think it can be sometimes difficult to get across the nuances, like, so for example, I didn't get a lot of the nuances of this whole situation. So, for example, with Hales, until I had really watched everything that was going on for a long time and I watched both sides, and that's one of the things that's a problem with an echo chamber, is that you're not seeing everything and you can't make a judgment if you can't see everything, right? Um, and that's, one of the problems with parasocial relationships is that, there are people who will just like, for example, I'm sure there really are people who would just stand behind Hales no matter what, because I've watched him for 20 years and I think I know the person. Do you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Rather than following the facts. And so that would be, that would kind of be a parasocial relationship gone bad where, and people do it on the other side. I see that as well, where they are just listening to what's being said in that one echo chamber, and because they admire this group, or and have emotions, it's all based on emotion. They're, oh yeah, they're doing good things, it's all about a child, but this is what people need to not do, and they need to get to just the facts, ma'am. I don't know if there's anybody old enough to know where that comes from. It was some show that was on, but it's just the facts, ma'am, and
I
that's
remember
what
seeing
people need to learn to do.
that. But Eileen brings up a really good point, though. She goes, I disagree. Some victims are very manipulative too. People aren't
Exactly.
often perfect victims. Sometimes everyone involved is terrible, and that is very true as well.
That is true.
I can't tell you you're wrong because you're not.
Well, I
And
always say I've helped people who have been through abusive situations. And, a lot of times I'll tell people, who looks the worst? Who looks the worst in a situation? So for example, you know, back during Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, right? Who looks like the biggest mess? Why is one person doing so many drugs? Because that's the thing about victim. You know, they coined this phrase a while back about there's no perfect victim. The victim is often the person who looks the worst, the angriest, the most frustrated. Think about it. Think about what they're going through. The other person is manipulating and has control. You know what I mean? They're manipulating and they're doing what they want to do. The victim's going through hell. You know,
And that is
so a
true.
lot of times they're the person who looks the angriest. They're the person who seems to do the most wrong things. And I think this guy in this video touches on that.
And before we move on, maybe not. Thanks for the gifted 10 Squid Pro Club memberships. And if you got one of those, think maybe not. I appreciate you so much. And it's another one of those things of like it's I always I relate it to like, and I always try to relate things to what I know, like to make a complicated situation dumbed down to my level. Um, I think of like football. It's never the person who initiates the contact who gets the flag. It's the person who retaliates. So it's never the
Yep,
person who gets pushed. It's the person who pushes back. And it's like,
exactly.
because it's like, it's generally not the person who started it, but, and it's the person who's manipulating, but you all of a sudden go like this, and it's like they get penalized and they look like the bad guy when it's, they didn't start it. Like it, and I came into this case when Megan started covering it. Because um, I had been on Megan's channel since I think she had like 5,000 subscribers. I've watched her for a long time. Um, and but I started watching it, and the more I watched it, I was like, yes, one side looks worse, but I'm in the thing of like everybody sucks here. I don't like any of these people in the sense of like actions, not actual like personalities, because I can separate someone's actions and I don't like their actions is different
Right,
than I don't like them as a person. But
right.
then going on someone's channel and being attacked for only giving my opinion, saying, I think I said like 5 words. I'm worried about the little, as a parent, I'm worried about the little girl. And all of a
Mm.
sudden, that was licensed for people to, on one side, to attack me and say that I'm this horrible mom and I'm judging another mother and I'm mom shaming and blah, 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 blah. Oh,
But
Star,
that's where you get,
this
I'm,
is
I'm
dose
just going to
reality.
halt you for a minute there. That's where you get to facts and evidence. Okay.
Yeah, and
Because,
Star, she said, "Sorry, who is the guest?" This is Dose Reality. She is awesome. She's been on YouTube for a long time in different chats. Been following this for a long time. I've seen her all over for a while, and she had reached out to me after, I think after I had covered it the first time or sometime, and gave me a bunch of resources. And she obviously had more insight with certain things than I did. So I asked her if she wanted to join me for a conversation. And here we are. So she is awesome.
but,
She has a YouTube channel, but she doesn't post to it. So, like,
well, I tried to be fair. I tried. I made a couple of videos and I'm learning. Well, I guess you are too, you had said, right? I'm learning the process of editing and, making that video. And boy, I'll tell you, it's a lot harder than people know.
yeah, and
So I put up
live
2
streams,
videos and I'm a perfectionist and I wasn't happy enough with them. So I took them down. They may get back up there eventually.
live streams are so not, I wouldn't say easy, but comfortable for me. I can talk to the camera without feeling nervous or whatever, or because I know that there's people on the other end. Like right now, there's 91 people in here. Like everybody hit the like button, please. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I would love it if you would hang out with me for more, because we talk about difficult topics on this channel, and I love to talk about difficult things and show that the world is not a black and white. Then nothing's all or nothing. We're somewhere in the middle, and we generally agree on more things than we disagree. Um, it's but with that,
Yo,
I
wait,
know.
and subscribe to me too. at
Yes,
Dose
correct.
Reality, because something might show up there someday.
And I was talking to her before the stream. That's why we were late. Because I had, I've always talking to when you guys are behind the camera, and I know that I can have a conversation with you. It's so easy for me. And when I am by myself in a room looking at this camera, all of a sudden I forget what to say. I Like, I don't know, but it was the same with me in speech class in college. Like, I couldn't write out a speech and read my speech or read notes. I had to give bullet points and I had to wing it because winging it, I could talk for hours. But if I wrote a speech and tried to read my speech, I couldn't like get past 2 minutes and my speech had to be 5 to 10 minutes. And then like I can't make this go, you know. But if I'm here and I'm just talking and having a conversation, life is easy. So I've made it a point. I purchased CapCut Pro. So if y'all want a super chat, I spent $180 on a year of CapCut Pro, so that I have no choice. I have to edit videos because I paid for it. And that's the kind of thing like I paid for it. So now I got to do the work. So like I that's my thing. Like a gym membership. If I have a home gym, but I don't ever use it because it's right there. And I'll say I'll do it in a minute. I'll do it in a minute, and then I get sidetracked doing like baby squid stuff and household stuff, and I never use it. But I pay for a gym membership, so now I have to go because I paid for it. Like now I'm like, no, you paid for it. You got to make your money's worth. So like now I have no choice. My goal is one video a week, and to cut down my live streams into smaller bits. So sometimes if you see bits from a live stream, but it's only like 10 or 15 minutes, it's a cut from a live stream and not a full live stream. So nobody missed anything. Sometimes I get comments, I didn't know you were going live. It's like, nope, this is like the last 15 minutes of my last live stream. Like, so it's with this and following all the facts, like I was under the impression that everybody sucked, so I didn't. But when one side attacks, now I'm like, oh, I'm curious of why you attacked me and I want to know more. And now I'm like, I follow the facts, and sometimes I think both sides need to like stop talking about certain things. But at the same time, I always say it's a lot easier to follow the facts and lean towards the side that doesn't attack you personally. Jeremy knows that I don't always agree with him sometimes. And the few times we have talked, he's kind of given me in the impression that I know you all don't always agree with me, but you're your own person, you do you, and kind of let me, not disparaged me or been rude to me for not agreeing with him. Whereas one side, I don't agree with them, and all of a sudden I'm this horrible person. Like it's easier to lean towards the side of people who respect you. So
Yeah, and I mean, here's the thing about, you know, these types of, relationships, if they get into the, the abusive and the stalking, is you start to see over time, and looking at, histories do matter, to an extent, because, and a person who does these types of things will typically have a history of doing these types of things, and a person who behaves in certain ways will keep behaving in certain ways. And so although I say, it's not a personality contest, um, but those things, after the facts, do as well, need to be looked at. And that's what I talk about too when I'm speaking about the judge, being discerning, where he starts to see, judges see a lot of criminals, and they start to get to know what these certain behaviors manifest themselves like, you know what I mean? And to be able to be discerning and say, well, yeah, but I know what's going on here. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's a tricky thing, but like I say, the first and foremost thing is the facts, and that person who's getting abusive is always going to look pretty damn bad, because they're being pushed to it. that's the whole idea of this stuff is, you're pushing a victim, to react and to behave in certain ways that gives you the control, and that's what it's all about.
So, Rickles, for those of you just joining, I'm sorry I don't have a tag of who the guest is, but this is Dose Reality. She is a frequent person in Megan's chat, Tug's chat. I've seen you all around the internet. I forget exactly, where I've seen you a lot of the times because I just, you pop up every now and then, a little bit everywhere. We're interested in some of the same things, so you pop up on the same channels a lot of the time. But she sent me some resources when I first started talking about this, and she gave me the impression that she is much more researched in this area than I am, and has a lot of good insight. And I just wanted to have a conversation because I like having a conversation with people who have different insights than me and are smarter than me. And like I said, and people say, well, I'm not smarter than you. It's like, well, maybe in a certain topic, maybe not in general. I'm not having a who's smarter than who contest. It's not the place, but and I don't like doing that. But at the same time, like I just because I like talking about something and the topic interests me does not mean I know a lot about it. So I like talking to people who know more. So it's a great conversation because this is oh, and I'm still getting used to having different guests on my streams too, because most of the time when I have a guest on my stream, it's Roslyn or Spawn or Slug or somebody that everybody kind of knows. So it's a little different. So I'm still getting used to that, but I will be having some guests on the stream that people don't and aren't familiar with. I have a good friend who we're trying to find a time that'll work for him. We're not as close as friends as we used to be, but he is a combat veteran who has a veterans charity, and he is doing a 22-mile walk in August, and I want to give his charity some attention because he is now working with the Milwaukee VA to implement his program into the VA system. So I'm getting used to. I'm used to streaming by myself a lot because I just stick to myself. But a lot of people, I like talking to people. So I'm all for having guests if something that I feel is interesting and will be a great show comes along. And she just happened to message me, and it was like, you know what? Are you up for doing a YouTube stream? Because that would be fun. And here we are. So, and it's great because it must have worked out great because the little fell asleep early. So like it must have been like in the cards for this to happen today. So,
Right.
and I'm not Italian.
Yeah, that's nice.
I'm not Italian. If you're wondering why I talk with my hands, it's my mom's fault. So, but it's an interesting thing of there's so many rabbit holes to go down with this topic that it's like, and I wanted to relate it this time to the what the Hales, but it's so there's also different avenues to go with it too. Like where did it change from being a celebrity thing to a rise of social media? And also, how do we get law enforcement to take us seriously when we have issues like that?
Well, I think it needs to be said that there's actually a particular problem when it comes to social media and people who go above and beyond, who aren't well, where bad things can happen, because one of the beauties of social media is the fact that you can have a chat, you can have a back and forth with the people who are watching you. I mean, that's a wonderful thing. It's not like sitting watching the news and you don't get to participate in some respects, online, depending on where you are, you do, to more or less of an extent. And that's the beauty of it. And the thing that makes people popular on, say YouTube, for example, is the fact that, they are having some give and take with their chat, and they are letting people know them a little bit, and they are getting that, oh, I really like so and so, I'm going to watch them. They're actually encouraging parasocial relationships. So being online is all about that. That's where the big money comes in for a YouTuber, is getting those relationships where people keep coming back in to watch them and they feel like they belong somewhere. Okay. Um, and it's okay. So for example, I'm going to use, Tug and Megan for an example, because I know we both watch them. Okay. So for example, Megan will tend to do things, and Tug does it as well, where when they're on a particular story, so remember it was Pond Scum Posse for Laura Owens, right? And then now it's the Muppets, right? That's not an unhealthy thing. That gives people a sense of belonging. We belong. We're these people in this chat. Everybody says hi to everybody, this kind of thing. And that's not a bad thing. You hear people come on, and I hear it on your channel as well, where people will come on and say, somebody in my family had a cancer diagnosis, and you helped me get through it because you distracted me. You know, this
Not to
is the
not to
beauty.
interrupt you. Not to I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just have to, speaking of that topic, Three Awesome Dogs is here. If you know Three Awesome Dogs, he has a wonderful channel where he is literally all about his dogs. Here is promised, had family business. By the way, I'm here now. If you are the praying type, no matter what God you pray to, even I say even it's the neon lights at the local bar, um, add Three Awesome Dogs to your prayer list. He lost his brother to cancer today, so we are praying for him and his whole family, that we are here for you. And also Roy and his wife are going through a difficult time right now too. So if you are the praying type, and even if you're not, and you just send positive vibes someone's way, positive vibes, they could all use them. We are I know it's parasocial relationships between me and my chat. However, these are people that do mean something to me. So I'd appreciate if you guys kept them in your thoughts and prayers, because they could really, really use them right now.
Three
So
Awesome Dogs, I'm gonna have to come watch your channel. I'm definitely a dog person, so I'll
he
have to
used
come
to be
check
two
you out.
awesome dogs, and he used to be
But
Two Awesome Dogs, and then I got a Discord message and a picture, and he said, "Now I changed my name to Three Awesome Dogs."
that's
Like,
cool. I also, Three Awesome Dogs, I just wanted to mention, I lost my brother a few months back, and it gets, prayers to you. It gets slowly better, um, day by day. And I'm the last one left in my immediate family, which is a scary thing. So yeah, I aged everybody out, but yeah, definitely my thoughts are with you on that, but it does get better day by day by day. And at some point you're going to be able to think about, all of the great times and things, and actually appreciate them,
I will be
rather
right
than just
back.
being
I'm gonna
sad.
go grab the little. I will be right back.
No
So
worries. Oh, we get to see little squid. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know if people are, sort of understanding that part about the fun and the belonging is okay. And a lot of times, opposing people will talk about how, that's a bad thing and you're a cult and this and that. No, I mean, a lot of people come in, to escape, to learn things, and yes, to belong to a group. And that's not a bad thing. It's when it goes past a certain point that, you've got an issue. And a lot of it has to do with, mental health or letting yourself get, too far into something. And I mean, you look at it, Taylor Swift has what, Swifties? Lady Gaga has what, Little Monsters, and things like this. So it's not bad to feel like you belong to a group. I'll tell you a good example of when it's bad is when you have somebody saying, "You're treating me poorly," and y'all might recognize this one from somebody who eats a lot of supper. Some Dave that eats a lot of supper, but basically people are treating you poorly, and you're saying, but you're my family. And then you're going to go back after having been treated poorly. That's not real health. When somebody treats you poorly, you have to have a line, and you don't need those people that much. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So that's where you start to see that it's not a healthy thing.
Yeah. And there's a fine line too. And it's the hard part is, and I'm learning this, is where is the line and what is the boundary between wanting to get to know people and um, wanting to get to know people and also maintaining those boundaries, because I do think of this as a community. My channel is small. I don't have I'm barely I'm slowly inching my way towards 4K. And I say slowly because I haven't put in much effort since I've been sick. So it's but I've my channel is just over a year old, and like I'm still learning this whole process and boundaries. And like the only reason that I say I've been able to disconnect from things and see things from a non-emotional side, I think that's my medical background, working in occupational therapy and working with people who were sick, who were not going to live very long. I kind of got a little jaded. So I do have the ability to take my emotions out of it, um, sometimes to a fault. Um, so it's, you know, and hey, King Paco, we are talking about um, parasocial relationships, how online, and you were here for the last discussion about parasocial relationships. And King Paco is a perfect example. I'm going to use you as an example. Um, King Paco is one of those people who, when I first saw him in chat, was like, I'm going to auto block this person because of where he spends his other time. And it's like, you know what? What do I care where people spend their other, like, at first it was like, no, why do I care where people, like, I'm not that close to people where I need to manage their online presence. Like, I don't care. Um, it was kind of one of those like situations where it's like I have to take a step back and realize that this is the internet and I am not the only person on the internet. And like it's it's kind of one of those situations where yeah, and then this too, some channels grow too fast covering one topic and have nothing else when that topic ends. And that's what I don't want to do either. So that's why I'm covering I this parasocial relationship. Yes, it relates to the Jeremy Hales, but um, it also relates to some court cases where things got out of hand. Um, it also relates to Johnny Depp, Amber Heard, going back to that. It goes back to even Laura Owens because she knew that Clayton Echard was on TV. And did she watch that season of The Bachelor and have a parasocial relationship where she felt like she was connected and she had to like search him out? This goes to so many different topics, even though it relates to what the Hales, and it might be a central theme, in my opinion, it's kind of a central theme, more than I ever thought it was. Maybe not the court case itself, but the online drama going along with it. You want to get down? Yeah. Okay. You let me know when you want to go back to sleep, okay? Yeah. Okay. Love you. So it's I don't want to ever be pigeonholed into a to one topic. But then the thing on the other hand is if I cover too many things, like people wanted to know if I was covering Karen Reed. I don't have the time for that. That is like a what the hales in itself, size wise. Lori Vallow. I can't spread myself too thin, otherwise my content suffers because I'm not giving the things that need coverage the adequate amount of time and effort. So it's this
Well, and
learning.
yeah, well, there's rabbit holes too, which are a wonderful thing, really. So, for example, on one particular, everything in life is connected, right? I remember I was tutoring a student. I had the opportunity to tutor when I was in college, and he was into zoology, okay? And he wanted to know why the heck he had to take human development. He was so upset. That's what I was tutoring him in, was human development. And he said, but I'm only interested in animals. It has nothing to do with animals. I said, well, here's the thing. When you talk about your animals, what you use for an example is what we already know the best, which is human development. So we talk about things with animals in terms of what we already know as far as the human development part of it. See, so it's actually, related, and everything, in life, it's funny like that. I remember one time finding out I thought I would be excellent at languages. I have difficulties with math. And I found out, but I'm an English person. I'm a writer, I'm a speaker, this kind of thing. So I thought another language will be easy for me. Then I found out that languages are based in the same area of your brain that does math. So if you have problems with math, you're probably going to have problems with the language too,
This book
which
right
is
here,
interesting. Yeah,
this
but
is
and
my
that's
brain
how everything's
construction.
related. So, these stories lend themselves to looking at these different rabbit holes. Like I'm very interested in the abuser and the victim. This parasocial thing is so important and current right now to be talking about, because like we said, online, being in social media lends itself, it's all about these parasocial relationships, even more so than like with these movie stars who are unobtainable, and you don't really get as much opportunity to have a back and forth with them. Online, it's completely different. And I think that we have to learn to talk about, know about, and they need to get laws about, how to deal with this type of thing.
And someone had brought up a comment that I agreed with, that they hope that that sets a precedent for future um, like case law. I also hope that this serves as a learning experience of if this happens to another creator, what is a the best way to navigate it, because truly it's uncharted territory. And I hate to say Jeremy Hales is the guinea pig, but sorry, Jeremy, you're the kind of the guinea pig in this situation because of you're the first person that I've seen literally go through this deep. And that being said, it serves as a what can we learn from this experience in the sense of when do we see red flags earlier? Do we block people? Do we set boundaries? I like where do we
Exactly.
like so not only do I agree with that person who brought up from like a case law perspective and a judicial system, but a as creators and even other chat members, because I've seen chat members who get into it with each other and like all of a sudden like it moves over to Twitter And then it's like,
Oh,
well,
yeah.
Twitter, there's more information, there's more personal information, and you can get people's real information easier than you can in a YouTube chat. And like
Well,
then it
all of social,
then where
yeah,
does it
all of social media. That's where I got doxxed was in X. Followed around. I even, I didn't start off as Dose Reality, and in X I have another account as well, which I can't even remember it now, Nikita something, and it was because I was changing around trying to avoid online stalkers, who were threatening me, who doxed me, who actually showed me a map of my house, all these things. And it was concerning. And, I tried to, sort of cut them off and pay no attention. And then I would see rumors about me and, different things like this. And it's a terrible thing, so I can really understand, what like Jeremy and Megan are going through, with different things that have occurred with them. Tug's been through it, you've been through it. Um, you know, it's something that's to be talked about now. And it is actually, this isn't, I mean, Jeremy's case is the one that we're all seeing and paying attention to. But I wanted to point out, just as a matter of interest, that there's a channel, Coffee House Crime. And on that channel, he has a story about a Chinese YouTuber in Africa that actually went through something eerily similar, very similar to Hale's, except for the legal stuff. But he ended up being ended live online by
oh my god.
somebody who was a competitor who he had taught and then had, sort of left behind and far surpassed, and this kind of thing. And it's eerily similar, which is really scary, you know. So
And
that's a good one to take a look at.
And I believe it was Island, and I'm sorry if here I found the comment. Parasocial relationships are one of those things that people not to see, tend not to see in themselves. They don't see their relationship as parasocial. And the thing is I don't know I had a conversation with Mr. Squid about something, and he looked at me and he was like, "Why do you care?" And he's like the emotionless, like, no offense to him, but like he doesn't show the only person who he really shows emotion with and like that, strong connection with. Um, he's one of those people that if I haven't known him as long as I have, like, he's hard to love. He's one of them guys that like, he doesn't show his emotions very easily. Is his daughter. His daughter is like baby squid is his world. Like he comes home and it's like this giant smile and it's like, um, but so whenever I need an opinion that has no emotion and has no like he doesn't care about the YouTube world. He doesn't mind that I do it. It's not his favorite thing, but he's not like he doesn't when I was talking to him about some YouTube drama stuff and he's literally like, "Why do you care?" And he was like, "You know what? That's a really good point. Because when I shut off my computer, these things don't exist. Like I shut off my computer and I can separate online world from real world. Turn off the phone. Like I don't know any of these people on it. Like we don't go to the park together or we don't go out for a beer on a Friday night. So I can separate myself." And that was like I saw an insight in myself when he was describing that. And I'm like, it's like his light bulb went off. And it was like, you know what? You're right. Why do I care? Like why do I yeah. Like I
Mm.
just this right here, Heather Kirby, like when Legal Vices passed, I cried for days. I grieved him more than a lot of people in my life that have passed. People without some psychology in their backgrounds can't see the difference. I grieve that he was different because he was one of those people where
Mhm.
I had a parasocial relationship and but he always supported me. Like as far as YouTube creators go, um, he was my biggest cheerleader. Like he always shared my link. He came on my channel. I asked him one time to come on my channel and he was like, "Hell yeah." And I'm like, "Okay." I've asked other people multiple times and they've always been too busy or never responded or this or that, to the point where I've stopped asking. That's why I do my own thing. And it's like I asked him one time for one topic and he was like, "Hell yeah, send me the link." And it was like, so when he passed, I like lost my mind. I kind of went, "Woof." And like everything in my YouTube world changed. So, oh yeah, yeah, mom, like he shows his emotions in other ways. I don't mean to call him a heartless person because he's not, but like as far as outward emotions, he's military. He's not like the cuddly, touchy feely, like hugs, words of affirmation kind of person. And I'm like the words of affirmation, love language kind of person. So it's taken 20 years to get where we are. So, but because of that, I can always go and when I need a non-emotional, like, I don't mean to say heartless because he's not. I love the man to death, but he, I can always get an objective opinion and not an opinion that has an angle or an emotion attached to it because he can remove his emotions from a situation and it's like, how do you do that? Is that a man thing or is that just a you thing? Because I've never seen that before. Like,
And emotions are not a bad thing. I mean, so for example, you know, feeling deeply about somebody that you feel like you have come to know online, some sort of public figure or whatever, that's not a bad thing. I mean, you watch a movie and you cry, right? I mean, but the bad thing is when you don't understand or when you're not seeing that, but this is not my life, entirely. You know what I mean? So, for example, you did have a relationship, Squid. Um,
yeah, but
so
I have to
that's a
say,
little
for the most
different.
part,
But
I
for
mean, I
your
started
average
watching him.
viewer, yeah, but for your average viewer, feeling bad, um, about these things, crying about them, that's not a terrible thing.
Oh no,
There,
I
there are these lines and nuances that, and that's the thing. Sometimes it's hard for people to see them. So, for example, I will argue adamantly for somebody, um, in a situation where I strongly feel like I've seen the facts and I've made a decision based on facts, and I will argue very strongly about these facts, right? So people have come and, thrown back at me, "Oh, you're in a parasocial relationship with that person." Right? I don't think I've ever really had this deep, heavy parasocial relationship with anybody, because the thing of it is, like, for example, Johnny Depp. All right. Yeah. I was a fan of his, right? I like some of his movies. Yeah, I loved his movies. I love a lot of his movies and that sort of thing. But I wasn't arguing because it was Johnny Depp. And there's a difference there. I was arguing because of the facts. And I was arguing because I've had a lot of opportunity in my lifetime to research and deeply understand situations of abuse and working with people who've been in situations of abuse and having been through situations myself, right? So I had an angle where I could see things that other people might not understand because the dynamics are very, very complex, right? So it wasn't about just all about that person. And a lot of times now I'm not going to hide which side I'm on. I'm a side, which thing I believe. I believe that Hales is a victim here. That's okay. Some people don't. But here's the thing. It's not because I've watched Hales all my life. I started watching him just because there was the big court issues, and I was following that and I was very interested in that. And then I went back and started watching him to get more insight.
Well, and
So
there's the other side of the coin.
I never was a big fan. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
I had never heard of him before he went on Megan's channel.
me neither. Well, I had never heard of him until I saw, I think it was when I saw Larry Foreman covering the court case, and then Megan covering the court case, and then I started looking into Hales. But I'll tell you a really funny story that you have to hear. And because this is a good example of sort of how to know and what red flags are, and what a healthy person looks like as opposed to somebody who is unhealthy. So during my lifetime, I've had a lot of opportunities where I've collected a lot of things, a lot of antiques. I have a really good eye for, seeing that thing that somebody else might think is junk, but I know it's worth money, you know what I mean? Or it's a finer thing. I don't exactly know how to explain that, but I have a fair amount of stuff that I've always been looking at, learning how to sell. Okay. So, then because of these court cases, I started watching Hales. And here's the weird thing. Now, this is where it gets really funny. I thought the same thing as Preston did. I thought he's going to bring that town up, right? Because he's got the business, he's bringing the attention. He's maybe looking to do things that are going to attract some tourism. And I'm actually not that far from there, right? So I had, out of curiosity, because now when I look at something, I research, I look at everything, right? So I was looking at the little town that I had never been to before. And I noticed that there was a gas station there that had also like a shop attached to it and all this stuff. But it was, like abandoned, decrepit, this kind of thing. And I thought, wow, what if I bought that and started selling things from there? Wait, you're going to laugh. What if I bought that and started selling things from there? And what if I got to know Jeremy? And what if Jeremy, were to help me, learn how to do this? And maybe I could sell some of his stuff too. And I sort of got all on this whole rant of it, right? But here's where you know if you're healthy or if you're not healthy. Okay. I looked at it and I said, there's a trailer there or a mobile home or whatever it is that you could live in while you're fixing this place up and all these things. And then I realized I don't have the money to buy that place. I don't have the knowledge how to make it go. I have no right to think that Jeremy is going to help me just because he's there and I'm doing the same type of thing, or that he's going to want to participate with me. I started thinking, why would I want to move from this is the truth. I started thinking, why would I want to move from my nice house to, that mess of a trailer in the Florida heat? And that's all true. But here's the thing. Pardon me, I had a cough there. But here's the
No,
thing.
you're fine. I get it.
That's when you know if you're healthy or not. If you can get to the point where you're looking at things realistically, it's like you had that conversation where you sort of got, talked yourself through or talked with, your partner through about becoming self aware of exactly what a situation looks like. And that's the difference, is that social media can exacerbate issues with people who already have issues. If you're not able to look at things realistically, if you're gonna, make up stories and think that they should manifest themselves without being realistic, like you say, without being able to take the emotion and the excitement out of it, you know, then you've kind of got an issue. And so this is some of the red flags, is misinterpreting, you know, interactions that you do have with somebody. So they said hi to me in the chat, or they mentioned something that I said in chat. That must mean they recognize me and know me. No, they just liked what you said in the chat. And yes, in some circumstances, people can get to know you a little bit and like you, but it doesn't mean that they're going to help you run a business.
That's
Do you
true.
know what I'm saying? And so there's these things that where people need to be self-aware and draw those lines for yourself self. Are you spending all your time arguing? So for example, with Johnny Depp, if I was spending so much time arguing that Johnny Depp was innocent and she was really the abuser, if I was spending such an inordinate amount of time on that it was affecting my life, my real life, right? Then I would have to say, okay, this is a problem. I'm crossing a line here, you know? Um, and if you take your life and change things that are actually happening in your real life, to this high extent for what's happening online, then you got an issue. And it's like anything, being mentally healthy is all about self-awareness. It's being able to stop yourself and to see, you know, look at what you're doing, just like you did with your situation.
And I literally was like, why? Yeah. And I'm projecting my insecurity onto somebody else. And it's like, yeah. But getting back to that legal vices topic, like he touched a lot of people, but and people cried for him that didn't know him. Did I know him really well? No. Did I have the same relationship that Flux or Megan had with him or Tug had with him? No. However, he was always like there when I had a question or needed something, or when I asked him one time to be on my stream and he was like, hell yeah. Like, um, but people crying over him. It's the did it make you emotional when he passed away? Yes, but are you still able to go about your business and function like a normal human being? Are you constantly like crying every 5 seconds and not able to make it through your, activities of daily living? That's the emotional like I watch Neebs gaming a lot. I am not a gamer by any means, but I watch Neebs gaming a lot because they are hilarious. One of the people involved in that channel passed away last year, um, or now 2 years ago. I cried like a damn baby. I'd never even met him. They didn't know me. I'd never commented on a live stream, and I still 5 years of watching videos of his like with his and hearing his voice, it's like and getting to know, it's like I cried like a baby. Do I still get a little emotional when we, talk about the fact that he's not here and he had a brain tumor and all of that stuff. Like I heard him on the last podcast and I'm like, he's not gonna live more than 2 more weeks. Like I could tell. I had worked with enough of the type of cancer that he had to know that he was not going to like I could hear it in his speech and I was like, I've seen this road before. I gave him 2 more weeks and he made it about 3 more weeks after that podcast dropped and he passed away. And I was like, I cried like a baby. So it also goes to show not all parasocial relationships are negative. Like, yeah, we've talked a lot about the negative effects here, but not all parasocial relationships are negative. Watching your favorite
Exactly.
YouTuber get you through a
Exactly.
depression.
That's what I was sort of getting at when in speaking about, people throwing, you have a parasocial relationship, like there's something bad with that. Um, you know, it can be bad, but it can also be a good thing. When you look at, what Jeremy Hales, when I kind of went off on a tangent though, what he did though was he inspired me, right? So if I can recognize I'm inspired and it encourages me to do, when looking at his success doing the same types of things that I've been looking to do, encourages me, and I learn things from watching him. This is good parasocial. This is the goodness of it. It's the same thing with, you hear a lot of times from in chats, again, you helped bring me through this. You even It's even okay to put yourself, onto social media because you're lonely. A lot of people in this world are lonely. Having a group that you talk to, that everybody recognizes everybody's name. I mean, I love going into certain chats because there are people I like from what I've seen. I like the conversations that I have with them in chats, and I'm happy to see them. And it makes me feel less lonely. I'm not afraid to admit I'm lonely. My daughter is grown. This is not a bad thing. I'm still a cool person. My daughter's grown. I had, situations with relationships, where they, sort of ended up not being a great thing for me, you know, and I put myself a lot online because there were these chats and these people and sort of something to belong to. Now that's all okay. What's not okay if I was to just do that and not say, okay, I need real life interaction as well. So this can suffice and this can help me, but I'm not in a circumstance where I can't get out and do things. As a matter of fact, for example, I'm moving to a place because I feel like I can have more social interaction with people there. You know, make efforts to go and take classes, to do things. This is like that whole thing about touch grass. You know, it's okay to use online stuff for the good of it, but it's not okay when you take it to extremes where you're forgetting to actually function in your life. And emotions are okay um, to have, but you also have to be careful that people are not pulling you by your emotions so much so that you're not able to see facts. So for example, when somebody is playing victim, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to use it here because it's the best example I have. When you're talking about somebody being poor, disabled, elderly, with a child who is has a life-threatening metabolic disorder, that's as much victim as you can possibly get in the realm of things. And it's okay to feel bad for that. I mean, I have a mixed sort of thought about Preston. On the one hand, there are things that I feel like I see that I understand her. But and I have some emotions like where I feel bad and this kind of thing, but I'm also looking at facts, you see. And so those are those lines that people always have to question themselves. Why am I in this? What else am I doing? It's just always questioning yourself, being self-aware.
And that self-awareness is huge.
Yep.
It's how quickly you can lose that self-awareness. You can go from having it one day to the right topic and the right person, the right creator, the right celebrity, and that all that self-awareness goes out the damn window. So it's like you have to continually what is that phrase? Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Like
Right.
you have to
Yeah,
continue.
exactly. I mean, it's a constant. It must be a constant, and a lot of people don't realize that is that in order to be the best you really need to constantly be questioning yourself. So, one example of that is like during the Johnny Depp trial, a lot of professionals came in, and they were clearly very biased towards what pulled their heartstrings. Okay, because they saw it a lot, because they dealt with it a lot. And they couldn't get beyond. You always have to question yourself, why do I feel this way? Is it because I've worked with, for example, a lot of women who were battered by men am I biased? That's something that you really, is something tough for people to see in themselves. Eh, eh, People don't ask themselves, am I biased, and why am I biased? You know what I mean? Am I just following my emotions, or are my thoughts, absolutely based on the facts that I see? That type of thing. And yeah, it's a constant thing that people really need to do to be healthy.
And I hate to cut this discussion short, but we're coming up on the 2 hour mark, and girls getting tired. Um, no, I like to keep my streams around 2 hours and capped that way, because otherwise I start to get sidetracked and go off on tangents that aren't even related to the situation at hand. So I like to try to find a good stopping place. Plus, I have everybody set up to redirect to Shizzy. So, because
Awesome.
he said his topic title of his stream is Judge Beletho drops the hammer. So,
Oh, Shizzy is a word master.
oh, I love
I mean,
Shizzy. Shizzy's
oh
awesome.
man, some of the things he comes up with, there are certain phrases that just kill me. You know what I mean?
It's, and I know that some of it is Chat GPT, but you have to use Chat GPT or any AI in a way that, like, you have to input a good solid prompt into it with certain words and phrases in order to get out the good content that comes out. So it's like you have to manage it. It's not all, just because Chat GPT helps doesn't mean it's all Chat GPT. The only thing I can't do with Shizzy anymore is the Sunday Spice. I just can't. Like, I lost, but they lost me on that one. But that's a me thing.
That one can go pretty deep.
Yeah,
I don't always get a chance to watch it, but yeah, I've seen it go fairly deep.
Jeffrey says the tangents are the problem. It's when you get the cotangents and derivatives and infinite derivatives. That's when you get into
Yeah.
trouble. Yeah, but I will. It's been great. I go off on a 3 hour tour. If
No,
I get
thank you
over
so
two
much for
hours,
having me on, and I hope I wasn't.
no, you were great. Um, if
I
it's
hope so. I hope I did good.
you were amazing. Welcome to YouTube live streaming. You are welcome back on this channel anytime that you ever want to discuss anything. It's been fun talking to you. Um, I if I go over 2 hours, I start to lose interest in my own. Like, that's one of my limitations that I know. If I go over 2 hours, I start to lose the attention span of my own stream, and like I'll start to, like, that's one of the reasons that I love trial streaming, but I hate it at the same time, is because, like, if the trial gets boring, I start, like, going off into, like, la la land, and it's like, nope.
I gotcha.
That's why I do night court, and I, like, speed it up, and we skip all the BS and, like, the breaks and, you know, all of that, because it's, it's I can't do regular trial court and sit there and do this, because my brain will go in 80 million directions except for what I'm supposed to be paying attention to. But that's one of
Yeah,
my
I got
my
that.
limitations, that I know that my streams, also rewatch crew. I've learned from other people's streams that when they stream 3 4 hours, like, I can't pay attention to your stream that long. So I learned that, like, if I lose the plot, um and I can't pay attention to my own stream, I really can't pay attention to other people's. So I try to make it easy for replay crew too, to not, like, you know, to not have to spend all day trying to get information on a topic. But that's why
I
I like
get that.
going
Like
through.
I'm doing a lot of work on a house right now, and so I'll do replay streams, while I'm working with the earphones. But what I find about that is I'm not I don't I'm not getting as much out of it. I'm not completely paying attention, because I'm actually, doing these hard things. So um yeah, I think it is better to keep them to, a certain length of time. But I do, before we go, I want to suggest to people a couple of things. One is watch the rest of this video,
Yes, I will
because
link to
it is very informative. And then the other one is to go watch Coffee House Crime, because there's he does one, I forget the title of it, but he does one that highlights a particular example that is very, very similar to what's going on in the Hales case.
and I am also dropping that link to that video in chat, and I'm also going to put it in the description of this video, and I'm going to do it before we stop here so that I don't forget, because that's the other thing too. Like, my brain gets mama brain, and I think the little, when she left this room, she went that way instead of back to her room. So I think she went in bed with her dad, which means I'm sleeping in her room tonight. So we have a queen size bed. The next time we buy a bed, it's going to be a king size. We've already decided that, but like, I can't. Um, it's one of those things of, we don't all fit, and she has a
Yeah.
full size bed, and she has a more comfortable mattress than we do. So whenever I get the chance to sleep in her bed, I do. Plus, I get to sleep by myself, which, as much as I love her and as much as I love Mr. Squid, sometimes sleeping by yourself is a great thing.
It
So
can be. I'll tell you though, I'll tell you the danger of a king size bed though. I got one once when I was with my ex. And you know what? I found I didn't like it because the problem was you have nightstands, right? And so your nightstand is here, and then the bed is so big, the other person's nightstand is way over there, right? And so it's hard to, sort of get together because then you can't reach your drink. But that was my issue with the king size bed.
yeah, and well, my issue has been, my mom says, Mama Squid, no room for mama. Yeah, it's been like that since she was really little, because they used to have the same bedtime. So um, we used to co-sleep, but I would be up in the middle of the night, so I'd sleep on the couch half the time so I could wake up in the middle of the night and pump. And whenever she would cry, he would just bring her in bed with him, and they'd sleep, because he's that like sleeper where the minute she moves, he's up. So
Mm-hmm.
it was I never thought I'd co-sleep, but then when you look at a certain situation, but I don't feel comfortable co-sleeping, but he was fine with it. Like, I felt comfortable with him doing it, just didn't feel comfortable with me doing it. So but when she got a little older and she would co-sleep with the both of us, she would, not to mention that they're both space heaters. So like, literally, it's like sleeping when it's still 85 degrees outside, and it's sleeping with a space heater, and I just can't do it. So sleeping with two space heaters, like, I would sweat my way out of bed, and I
I
just,
totally get that, because that's why I got the king bed, was because, well, I know a lot of people don't do this, but I'm one of those that does. I would let my dog comes on the bed. And so it's almost like, having a kid. And that was my issue that made me think I would want a king size bed, was that they were both very warm. My ex and my dog were so hot, and I would be like sandwiched in between them. And I'd be dying, you know what I mean? So I thought the king size bed would work.
I uh I like the king size bed, because generally the two of them snuggle up together, and I um I get to
Have your
sleep.
space.
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah.
get my space, which is nice, because I it's just one of those things, like, I like my space. Yeah, and
Oh,
she's
I
a
get
spinner.
that too.
She's
Yeah.
a spinner. She
I mean,
will wake up.
I love my dog, but he'll get up in my bed, and if I get up to go, to the bathroom or something like that, I come back and he's taken up the whole entire bed. And it's
Oh,
really
baby
difficult to
squid,
move him, and then I end up sleeping like a pretzel.
baby squid is a spinner. So she will start off like this, and then she will do this. and she will be here. So you'll wake up and her feet will be on the pillow. And it's like, that's not how that was supposed to go. It's not how that was supposed to go. Like, yeah. So, but anyway,
Okay,
I
Shizzy,
relate to the
onward
space
and
heater comment. Yeah, it's great when it's cold outside, but when it's 90
right.
degrees outside, it's like
I agree. I
it's
agree.
it's great. The thing is, like, she's so warm that I've literally checked her temperature sometimes thinking she had a fever, and it's like, no, that's just her. She got that from her dad. I am like my hands and feet are so cold, and they are like, personal space heaters. But anyway,
But in the
y'all have a
winter,
great night. It's been a great conversation. Thank you for joining me tonight. I appreciate it so
thank you
much.
very much for having me.
No problem. I just figured when you were sending me those links and those resources, I'm like, you are have done so much research in this area and have so much insight. It's like I I would rather talk to you about it than report what you told me because it's just so much better coming from the person who knows more about it and who can give a different opinion than me too. Because yeah, we agree on a lot of things, but we come at it from different perspectives, and sometimes it's the best conversation. So,
I agree. It was great talking to you, and I hope we get a chance to do it again.
oh, anytime, anytime. Hopefully, when she starts actually going to bed by herself a little better, and not being so needy with someone being right there, um, I can start streaming at night again. So it'll be more flexible on time. So y'all have a great night. Tell Shizzy that I said hi and I miss him. And I will see you guys on the next one, probably tomorrow to update what the Hales documents, because I haven't done that all week. So I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.
Good one.